The following tape is not a complete program. It represents the transition points which occurred when 9 Boston leaders locked themselves into a small studio for 22 hours in an attempt to solve pressing city problems. As the tape demonstrates, they began the process with outright hostility, and by slow degrees moved through periods of testing, guarded trust, genuine attempts at problem solving. Ultimately, they began to form sincere relationships. We are proud to present this capsule version of T Group 15.
T Group 15. WBZ Radio presents what we feel is the most profound experiment ever attempted in broadcasting. 9 key Bostonians, black and white, and 2 social psychologists locked themselves into a tiny room for 24 hours. Their goal? To explore solutions to some of America's most pressing problems. They tear at the walls of race, education, and personal communications, and in doing so, lay bare many of the barriers built into each of us. The story of their successes and failures takes 15 full hours to tell and has vitally important implications for every listener. Boston University professor Dr. Malcolm Knowles, an expert in human relations, introduces this special program and gives the running commentary. Dr. Knowles.
For the next 24 hours, we shall be involved here in Studio T of WBZ in an experiment in social problem solving. We have here a laboratory in community relations, sometimes known as a T group, in which many of the forces are at work that you'll recognize as existing in your own communities. Some members of this laboratory community bring with them a history of clashing with one another in past meetings. Others are meeting one another for the first time. Our mission in this experiment is to try to deepen our understanding of what is required to convert a community that is divided and immobilized by its differences into a community that is able to work together as human beings bound together by their common humanity. 2 skilled behavioral scientists, Dr. Erwin Rubin of MIT and Jack Jones of Boston University, will participate in this community to help its members try to find ways to overcome the forces that are interfering with their solving their problems. The white participants include Mrs. Louise Day Hicks, former chairman of the Boston School Committee, John Kerrigan, a member of the Boston School Committee, Paul R. Tierney, a member of the Boston School Committee, Louis A. Vangel, Executive Secretary of the Boston Teachers Union, and Lawrence C. Bonar, member of several parent organizations concerned with Boston schools. The black participants include John Eartha, member of the Committee for Community Development, Mrs. Dorothy Jones, a teacher at the community-controlled Highland Park School in Roxbury, Mrs. Elizabeth Bristol, a member of several community action groups, and Charles Goodwin, member of the United Front and the New England Grassroots Organization. I shall be conversing with you from time to time to highlight events in this group's progress. Hopefully, we shall gain some insights that we can apply as citizens to building better communities out where we live around the clock. May I suggest that as you listen, you pay particular attention to how this group goes about establishing a climate of mutual respect and trust, how they go about identifying common concerns and goals, how they're communicating with one another, and what methods and procedures they use for building better personal relationships. Dr. Erwin Rubin of MIT begins the marathon session.
I thought I might just say a few words, kind of kick it off maybe, and let you know where I am. Several things went through my mind. Let me share them with you very quickly. Any experiment, and really this is the way I view the next 21 and a half, 22 hours really as an experiment, but any experiment that had any potential whatsoever for increasing our abilities to understand each other as people was something I'd want to participate in. And kind of the main reason why I'm here tonight is to try to help all of us do whatever we can in the short period of time available to us to see what we can do to come closer together in terms of understanding each other as individuals.
First off, I don't know who that community is, and I don't want self-appointed leaders turning our system
We'll have
upside
election day
down.
when you elect your school committee here in Boston.
Well, I haven't seen any evidence of this, and,
Well, I got to present it to you. Who are you? You're not an elected official, are you?
I'm not
Why
I
don't
just
you
represent
go on?
the teachers.
Why don't you go on
I
to Roxbury?
represent the teachers.
When you walk,
I've been in
Listen, man, why don't you go to
Roxbury. I've been
Roxbury
in
and put fires
Roxbury.
up and run for office against someone up there?
I can shout just as
I don't
loud
care.
as you
I'm not
can.
interested in you as an
Yes,
individual.
listen, I
I'm
know.
interested in what you were saying.
I'm telling you what
Fresh
I'm
Charles,
saying,
Charles,
and I
hear what you have to
represent the
say.
teachers.
What is your problem
Exactly
about? What is your
I
problem about those black people determining what teachers teach in their community?
Because I haven't seen it yet work anywhere.
This is Charles Goodwin Black and Louis Van Gel White.
You shut down a system for 6
Well,
weeks.
but the only schools that remained open were the schools in Olsenville, Brownsville section. They still open, didn't they?
And
They were the kids who were
teachers
getting
went on and
education.
taught every
I don't
day.
care whether all you teachers go on the strike. Personally, Mark, I'm
You don't care about anything.
No, up against the
You just
wall,
want
as
to
far as I'm
sign
concerned, as far as
for
you're concerned. I'm not
sounding
interested in what you, but
No,
we're
you're
going to
not
determine who
into it.
teaches in our
You're
school.
gonna
Now,
determine.
they're going to be bright and stay out on school
Why,
teams and determine what
I
teachers
don't
are going to
stay
send
on
out.
School
The
Street.
schools
I'm in
won't open.
Roxbury every day of the week. I don't stay on School
That's where the
Street.
action is.
I'm in Roxbury every day.
Looking out for your interests. The interests of
What
the
interest?
The interests of the
I'm
people.
trying to work
the interests
together.
of the people who live in your community.
I'm trying to see. This is the attitude that isn't going to get
That's
the
the
school.
attitude that I. That's the
This
attitude
is
that
the
I have.
attitude
That's the
that
attitude
isn't
I
going to
believe
get
in.
the school open.
That's the reason
you
why.
don't even have
That's
a
the reason why you don't have any
school.
rebel. That's the
You
reason
don't
why.
have a
that's
state.
My kids go to the
Oh,
elementary school. Let me tell you something, clown. Before you start going, I don't want to get personal about this. Let me tell you something. My kids go to the elementary school where we have community control.
Must be perfectly clear to all of us that these two guys, for the last 5 minutes or the last 2 hours, have not heard a damn word either one said, okay? Well, let's just stop a minute, stop the music. Let's try to figure out why you ain't hearing him and he ain't hearing you, because we can sit and yell from now till doomsday and neither one's going to hear the other one. Okay? So let's just cut the other crap that's flying around in the background. Let's talk a little bit about why you two aren't hearing each other. Let me make a suggestion to start with, okay?
Okay, fine.
How do you feel when he points a finger at you and says, "Hey, union man"? What kinds of things does that do to you?
I don't know. I don't know. I think, I think this,
Put you on the
maybe we're both, no. I think that maybe there's sarcasm on both sides to try and get our points across, and obviously we're running into some sort of a clash. That's my opinion, anyhow.
Lou, could you talk about the kinds of feelings you get? How do you feel?
Well, I feel this way, that I'm trying to make
That
an
was
honest
Jack
attempt
Jones addressing
towards
Lou Van Gel.
working out some sort of compromise in the King situation. And I keep getting the feeling now
Lou,
that it's hopeless to try and do it because nothing short of that compromise is going to work.
Lou, let's move away from the King situation.
Okay.
Let's move. How do you feel when Charles is talking to you?
How do I feel?
How do you feel?
It all depends on what he's talking to me about, I suppose. As I said, I don't think we're communicating.
Why did that violence erupt at the King?
Why did it erupt at the King?
Why do you think it happened?
I think that more than likely that they had a lot of agitators in there that didn't belong in the school. All right, you laugh, but you're laughing when you're thinking of children, and I don't see how
When you stood out in Franklin Park that day and they were having
that.
that gathering, that rally out there, and you were in the trees looking over the hill, and the police had to rescue you.
Well, let me tell you something
what
about
were
that.
you over there? You have a very, I'd be very interested. I hope you leave your brain to Harvard or something, so we can really get a look into that thing, because there's some peculiar things going on in your head.
Wait a minute
What
now.
happened?
Wait a minute, Mr. Goodwin. You
She
were
said she
trying
was
to-
over there because she had the interest of the school kids.
No, I did not.
Well, I mean, so what, we're going to play with each other? I mean, is this the purpose of this thing?
I'd like
is to sit here and make an appeal to these millions and thousands of listeners out there, then we're not going to accomplish anything.
I got a small question for you, Charlie. Now, you're angry and you agree with your friends that said they should be boycotted. Everything should be boycotted, I suppose. When we went out to the Roxbury community, that should be boycotted. This should be boycotted. But my question is, what are you prepared to give? You come here, you're angry at us, or him, because he won't give. Are you prepared to give?
Say anything about boycott. What did you read? What did you read in any statement I made that
you mean to say it hasn't?
suggested boycott?
You haven't mentioned here tonight
The word boycott.
that this meeting, this particular meeting right here, should have been boycotted.
No, I said that this meeting is being boycotted.
Right.
Why?
Because they feel as though that this is they feel that people are going to use it as sort of a showcase for future political ambition. And there really nothing is going to happen. Because they've been talking.
You think that's
this 24 hours
been happening?
How much time have you spent altogether talking to the King Board and his parents? How much time putting it all together? How much time has it been more than 24 hours?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So what miracle is going to occur in this 24 hours that you're going to say? You said this obviously legal, and you're not for it. You will not even make you won't make the commitment. You say, well, I'm in favor of it. Let's do something about changing the law. You say, well, I don't know. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to study it.
No, I'm not.
Because that would be political suicide for you to
I'm not in
say that you're in favor of it.
Something I don't know about. I don't know where it's worked. I haven't seen it work. But I think a step on the road to what you want to achieve would be this idea of beginning to participate, come in on an advisory nature, listen to parents, listen to people in the community, listen to the students, have them come up with recommendations. This is a step toward the end that you want. I mentioned we cannot give you what you want. We cannot give you community control.
And nothing else makes any sense, so if you don't give it to him, he's got to take it.
We've tried asking, we've tried demanding, and we still haven't got anything. We've got nowhere at all.
We've got a lot to.
What you're doing isn't working. The school is closed.
That's your
Notice that the school committee participants and the black community participants are now saying we're agreed on the goal, but we must use different means.
Can I make a suggestion for us? Maybe we can try a different mode for a while, perhaps. And we've all been doing a lot of talking. I'd like to ask
Dr. Irwin Rubin.
Just listen for a couple of minutes, and I want to play a few songs for you. And I'd like to just ask you to listen very carefully. No, I'm not going to sing. But I'm going to ask that we kind of just sit quietly, really sit quietly, and try to listen to the words in these songs, and try to be very aware of what kinds of feelings those words generate.
Is it soul music?
I don't know what kind of music it is, John.
You know if it's soul or not.
It's not soul.
All right, I'm going to listen anyway.
I'd really like to just have you sit and listen for a while, and I want to play 2 or 3 of them, and then I'll just turn it off and we can maybe sit back and talk about it. But try to really be aware of kind of what you're feeling as you listen to the music. Okay, let's try a different strategy. Pulling in closer. If you pull in closer, you'll hear the words, and they're important words.
Dr. Rubin has now invited the group to come much closer together so that they can more carefully hear the words of the song. And actually the group will become more cohesive and more closely related as human beings as a result of this physical activity.
Anybody hear the words to that?
There'll come a time when we are one.
I heard just a phrase here and there and not enough to get the context.
Are they black and white, going to marry and conquer the world, change the concept of thinking?
He's talking about the space between us.
I heard that.
And the barriers we put up to maintain that space. And what's happened to the love? It's grown cold. And someday maybe we'll realize that nobody's going to make us change. The only power to change is within each one of us.
It's interesting that Dr. Rubin had asked them to come close together and played a song that alluded to the fact that it was distance that was keeping us apart. But after the song had ended, the group moved their chairs back and increased the distance between them.
I got the first 2 enough of the words to understand what was being said.
Could you relate some of it, Dorothy, what you heard?
Well, the first one was, pig was being constantly used as, as an epithet, really. My first reaction was, I empathize with the concept, but I hate to hear it being said that way. That was my honest reaction. I don't like to categorize people and ideas that I disagree with. In that kind of language, because I think it only increases the problem of communication. Though sometimes I give up on trying to communicate anyway. So that I had an ambivalent reaction to that first one. Let me see, what was the second one? I don't want to change the world. And another phrase was
about evolution, wasn't it?
When it comes to destruction, count me out. I heard that. Well, again, my initial reaction there was that no, I don't buy this. I do want to change the world. I can't face the prospect of having to continue living in the world as it is now, as it reacts on me, and just take it and not do anything about it.
Could you tell us again what the words in the last one were?
He's talking about the space between us, and the barriers we put up and the illusions we create to maintain that space. And he's asking what happened to the love that we used to have between us. Has it turned cold? And the only way that we're ever going to change is nobody's going to be able to change us. We've got to change ourselves. And that's the within you and the without you.
I question whether the love that we think was between us ever really was.
Never really was. This is my thing. I think of
I agree that nobody's going to change us but ourselves, but I'm wondering whether we're saying that, all of a sudden we don't love each other anymore, when maybe the difference is that now we're saying it, when before we never did. I'm not sure we ever really did love each other. In fact, I have serious doubts about it.
I thought that they were talking about maybe two lovers who were in love. I didn't think of it in their idea of
The barriers to thinking was good.
Louise Day Hicks.
too. I thought it was a general two lovers.
Are you trying to imply in your own non-directive way that there are barriers that
They're existing right here.
Here.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I got that.
I didn't get that.
And my concern is that we're not going to solve any problems out there until we deal with the barriers which may be in here. I don't consider it very non-directive at all.
You'll have to just love me. Start with me. Boy, if you can love me, you can love the rest.
Could we depend on you, for instance, to work with us to change the law, to make it adequate?
You will have to convince me that community control...
No, I'm not talking about any specific problem.
Well, that's...
I'm talking about if we did convince you of a certain thing. But then again,
Sure,
if we
if you
managed to
convince me
get
of
you
something.
so-called on our side, how much... I don't know the word I'm looking for.
How much effort would I devote to affecting
No,
the...
how much respect or trust do you have in the other members of the committee to change their minds? And would you attempt it?
I do all the time, things I believe in.
You do?
Sure. Don't you see those votes up there? 3-2, 4-1, 5-0 once in a while.
Then why is it taking so long to get things moving right?
This is what's taking so long.
Onward.
Three people who agree.
Can you accept what he has just told you?
Can I accept it? I don't quite trust him yet. It's not, I don't particularly trust you. I don't trust you in your position. You understand why? It's been too many years that things have gone school committee's way instead of our way or a middle road, if you want such a thing as a compromise. Anything to make progress. Sure, I'm ready to trust you.
Let me see if I can follow what you're saying. Are you saying that outside of his position, you might see him as there might be a different kind of relationship?
Right. But see, to me,
He's a
you're
person,
like an
but
enemy.
He's also a school committee member.
Right.
So you're not
Right.
reacting to him
No.
personally, you're acting to his position.
Right.
It's his position that's important in the context of the school struggle,
Right.
not Paul, the human individual. We can trust him, but let's say we trust him. He said himself he's one vote. He hasn't been able to change that structure, and the structure is what we're fighting.
Here we're observing
When
one of the
he,
critical
as a member of the
issues
school committee,
in
is
human
functioning.
relations,
We're-
which is the
I'm
ability
differentiating
to
between
distinguish between
school committee member
the person performing a role, such as John Tierney's role as a member of the school committee, and the person as an individual human being. And Mrs. Bristol has just pointed out that she is making that distinction as regards Paul Tierney. She does not trust him in his role, in his position, but thinks she might be able to trust him as a human being. It'll be interesting to see how this issue gets resolved.
Do you trust us, black community, to have the knowledge, the common sense of the...
I trust you in the sense that I know that you're, as parents, that you're so very much concerned about your children who are not achieving the way they should be achieving. And I know that you're so concerned that you're trying to obtain the power to affect the changes that you see that are necessary.
I think that maybe for too long I've been used as a scapegoat in the city for many things that I don't stand for, and which irritate me no end when I feel that a people in general feel that I stand for, because simply that you spread the word that I stand for anything that's racist, then it does bother me.
What about Charles, Louise?
Charles, I think, is definitely one of those people that believes that I'm a racist. And simply because that I have always believed in the concept of a neighborhood school. And I didn't care whether you were white or black, but I believed if you're a little child that you shouldn't be bussed out of your neighborhood, and that everything educationally should be done for you. If you needed more and you needed more money to be spent on you and on your particular school, then spend the money. And I said that if people from outside or any other part of the city, if they believed in having children brought outside, don't take the children for a bus ride for an hour or so a day, but build homes and bring families out there so they could live outside and then be a part of that particular community. But when I say that I thought that schools, neighborhood schools, were the right thing, busing was the wrong thing for children, then that was a racist view. But it seems to me that now the Roxbury community itself feels that the best thing to do is to have this super education, or whatever kind you want to call it, to meet the needs of the children in this area. And they feel now that this is what they want. They don't want to go outside, but they want to handle it themselves because they feel that others have not handled it in the way that they wanted.
I'm saying just in order to get the discussion going on a positive rather than the negative note, let's pretend, and it's pretense, and I know that, I'm a realist, but let's pretend for now that we are creating a brand new school system, and let's look at what we want to have in it. Then when we've created this model, we can compare it to what is in a way that perhaps is not so destructive as, bringing up everybody's defenses.
I think we're all intelligent enough to cooperating, parents, teachers.
Louise, are you against the experiment that Dorothy is asking you to help her with?
Maybe I am, because it seems so unrealistic and so forth.
Why?
Why is it so unrealistic?
Why?
Well, simply because that you have a school system now.
Oh, I know it, and I can't forget it, but are you capable of just pretending for, say, 5 minutes?
I'll pretend. I have the time, but you're saying you have so little time.
Well, we're not going to get out of this room to get back to the fight until our time's up anyway.
No,
so
but I mean, this is like the thing. You say you have so little time and so much to do and so much.
Yeah, I shouldn't have put the 24 hours in, but I'm here. So
but something might come out of it.
Sorry,
and it's always worth the chance.
But like I do a little, instead of pretending that you really kind of think of, is there anything beyond this control bit that you could come to your school committee and figure out?
Maybe we can come to it through this mechanism. I haven't been able to come to it any other way in this discussion.
So let's try another route.
Right. It's almost even a physical issue in some ways. I can see at least the three of you sitting here reaching out hands.
Right there.
Yeah, why don't you just really pull together even closer in the center of the room and try to work it out a little bit.
You're asking me to sit on the floor, and I'm not physically built that way
Not
anymore.
me either.
My arthritic knees, no, I really have a problem.
We're not unbound.
It's interesting that about 5 hours ago, Erwin Rubin played a record in which the message was that distance was keeping us apart, space was keeping us apart in our human relations. And to hear the record, the group moved in close together, but then after the record was finished, they moved back away from each other. Now, Irv is reminding them of that lesson, so to speak, that was developed many hours ago and has now suggested they move in close together, and they're doing so.
Can I make a suggestion that we might maybe want to consider trying for maybe a little while and see how far we go?
Let's get us off dead center.
Let's make a conscious effort for as long as we can to not use the word school in anything we say, to not use the word community, to not use the word control. Let's see what this group can do without that issue.
What are the 4 words again?
I'm just suggesting the word as an example.
I'm accomplishing something here.
What can this group do without at all talking about the school issue? For a second.
Tell me, what's the difference between Negro and black?
Yeah. Right.
Oh, that's very simple.
Very simple. Well, no problem. Even the kids don't have trouble understanding that. Well,
Negro is the term that white folks created to call us by. Black is what we decided in this generation that we wanted to be. And usually when we speak of someone who's Negro, unless we're just being euphemistic, we're talking about a person who hasn't made the transition to the new thinking, the new identity. That's all.
Now, wait a minute.
It's really quite simple. We're doing our own thing.
Who still thinks with a so-called
Negro
brainwashed
is a term
mind.
that was created by non-black people, a person.
What Mr. Charlie called us
And
when he was being polite.
Right.
And
Instead of calling us
because,
nigger, they called us Negro.
It's a creation of
Or Negro.
But how did this all
non-black.
happen? I mean, in the last 5 years.
Let me clear that.
Does that come with black power?
No,
idea?
it has nothing to do
No?
with black power. We are black people. We
identification.
come from Africa. But that's the whole point. We decided we would be proud of where we came from, just like you are.
You ever heard that record? I'm black and I'm black.
We've been taught.
You know,
We've been taught to be ashamed
I'm impressed when I was a kid. You know,
that we were black.
I put my service right with me. I've been overseas. I've been called black.
White people taught our people to be ashamed
I'm
of
the time I used to
black.
fight about
Same
it,
thing
you know?
going again.
Because I was all hung up on something. I was trying to be something different, you know. Because it was so difficult being a Negro. I mean, the things that you went through. Actually, to be called, people who were Negroes, they say, well, I'm Spanish or I'm half Indian, I'm this.
But you want to be called black.
And they had no sense of unity.
How about
So
black
now we
is,
say black,
No,
we've
then
got
you're
unity
insulting
because we're not almost hang-ups
And if
anymore.
I say-
We're not dividing the colors,
If I
the
say
shades.
you people, that's
you know?
not good either, huh?
I was raised up in a world, you know.
Then you're
The
lumping.
lighter you were, the more you got, you know,
I've
and
heard so
white
often
power,
you
black
like
power,
to
that kind
get
of
your back
system,
up
you know.
No,
No. Why?
Can we try another?
I don't know. It doesn't bother me that much. That's the way I am. I'm whitey. But blackie.
Because you're secure and you don't feel any sense of inferiority. It'll be a long time before we have grown to that point.
Nice.
The important thing is that in our own community, for the first time since the first slave landed here, we are rebuilding something that was destroyed.
See, now, I found a bill up in the legislature that changed the wording of that racial imbalance law from non-white to Negro. I better go up and change it to black, huh?
You would probably insult the majority.
I never thought of it, believe me.
You would probably insult the
This is what a lot of white people
And
don't
see, the parents
don't know.
really object.
File it, yes.
Don't worry about it.
It's not that important.
Okay.
We've
Well,
just...
we worry about you, Doug,
My
when we try to communicate with you. If we don't know,
Well, it's
we
more
use the term.
important what we call ourselves instead of what you call us as
Until we accept...
There seems to be a very honest attempt going on here on the part of the white members of our laboratory community to be able to see the world through the eyes of the black members. They seem to be asking the black members to tell them in ways that they can understand what it's like to be black and what the real feelings of the black members are about the community,
Lack of education, communication.
about the white members of this community.
You should
I
have
didn't
learned this in
I
school.
had to go out of school to
But
find
right, I had to go to the library to
My
find it
feeling,
out.
I hear about you're attempting to develop pride in your race and your history and your culture and your...
It was all
This
stolen
is
from us.
reflected in your...
Let's give them a specific short course.
I say, it's about time. I say, it's about time. Of course you should be proud of your background. I mean, Well, what the hell took so long for you to realize this?
Well, we were
We never saw
brainwashed.
kinky hair before. Everyone
We were
greased it and
brainwashed.
slicked it down.
That's right.
And we say, well,
Right, you know
now
what? To
they were trying
emulate
to
the
be
white
white.
man because white was right.
You know what
Black
happened
was
to us when
wrong.
we came here?
That's what it is.
Bleaching
When we
creams
came
and all
here,
that sort of nonsense.
the first thing that slave masters did, because they were smart, you cannot enslave people who know and remember a tradition of freedom very long. So they destroyed that by separating families, by separating groups from the same tribe or the same area who had a common language.
Giving them the
So the
pie
first
and
thing that
stuff.
happened was that the generation born in slavery had no history. There was no one to say, boy, I knew your grandpa. As far as he was concerned, he had no grandpa. He had no past. He had no language. He had no religion. He had no tradition.
And he was not
He had
allowed
he
to
had
learn the
nothing
language.
except what his master gave him, which was an expurgated version of Christianity, taking out most of the love and the militancy, and including mostly just the humility. The language he had was what his master gave him. The culture that he had was none, because his master didn't believe that he should have any culture.
He was an
He had
animal,
no family
not a person.
structure because it was impractical and uneconomic to allow slaves to have family. You bred them for purposes of producing more slaves, and that was all.
Healthy.
Yeah.
Because not all of them were
Then
capable.
came technically freedom. Thank you. Oh, now I have two. I didn't realize I had that one.
Civil War.
Then came technically freedom. The period during which people who had, blacks who'd been free before the Civil War, as well as the newly freed men, had any kind of control over their own destinies was quite short, and even during that period was somewhat limited, only in certain areas.
Okay,
So
now
that there was not a
history-wise,
possibility-
we're about 1868,
We're
something like
between
that.
60 and 70. By
There's a beautiful
1870,
picture here
the
of
Reconstruction, limited
Florence
as it had
Jones
been destroyed.
really
And to all
being
intents
an
and
instructor
purposes, things
to
went
Louise
back
Day
to,
Hicks
quote,
and
normal,
Paul Tierney
with one
and
exception.
Irv
The
Rubin,
slave was not now
with them
a chattel
listening
slave.
so attentively and almost literally sitting
He
at
was
her
still
knee
dependent
while she
on the white structure,
explains to them
which passed
what it
laws
is to be a Negro
safeguard
and
itself.
how Negroes came
He
to
didn't control his school.
have the attitude that they have
and
now.
those
And
not
it's almost
necessarily
like a
full
classroom
summers, but one
situation
that wasn't knowing
um,
that he began to worry about
in
his
which
soul and his
there is an
mind.
attentive audience
Yeah,
with a very
we got to the point
earnest
where we
teacher.
have
We take the school committee and this group that you mentioned and lock them in a room, no TV, no radio, and you don't come out of this room, you come out here with something that's going to get this damn school open. And this is where you stand.
and no cameras,
post
and
to
no
God.
tape recorders, so nobody has
Outside
to
the
worry
door.
about
Some fool
being
is-
held to something he said in a moment.
Yeah, that would be a very important relation.
I think you'd have a freer exchange.
I think it's worth trying.
You
Well, I
better give
think
him a
that
rest first.
It'll be interesting to see if in the next 5 or 6 hours this group arrives at some understandings as to what they can do as individuals, even though they aren't, for example, the majority of the school committee here.
I don't believe miracles, but with an extended period, at least you have more chance of seeing one another's people. And no matter how hard you try, most people who are in these responsible positions are good people. They didn't come from Mars, and they're not anarchists who go back and are planting bombs and all this foolishness. They do, just as, you leave your kids in the morning and you worry about what kind of school they're going to. All of us are in the same position. And it's only when we get to this level we begin to get to some of the other things. But we do have illusions, outrageous illusions about one another that in a short period of time just never get out. We do nothing but trot out our finest rhetoric, and by that time they're saying this is a Columbia broadcasting system.
I should give them about 4 hours to get a shouting match over, stay in position. Give them a cup of coffee and sit down and talk some more.
We even this late find a shout still left in us now and then when it gets hot. It never really goes away, does it?
seems a bit different key, though.
Yeah. I don't know whether it's fatigue or greater understanding, but I'm not sure.
What do you think?
I really don't know. It's hard to tell
I think it's both.
why I'm softened, whether I just
Tired.
too tired not to
What's happened before? This hasn't happened before. There's been no extended meeting between the school committee. This hasn't happened.
No.
That's indeed strange. I mean, has anyone made any proposals? Any proposals come from either side to do anything of that?
I don't recall. I thought we requested a report from the advisory council on what their plans were.
Oh, yes, well, that's the same thing.
Which would have led to a mutual discussion.
So what about that?
He does a good job.
I think two members of the school committee here are present. About that idea.
What, you're proposing a meeting of the school committee with selected members of the community?
Yes. Influential.
Yeah.
Yes. That kind of thing.
I'm open-minded, but if we have enough notice, we can schedule it properly, sure. I think you're going to accomplish something.
Attend that, would you? I think
The only time I was afraid was the last time I visited the king. I had to run.
So if you had sufficient notice from who?
Who's ever
Well, you
set the
those
meeting up?
arrangements.
Yeah.
You prefer the community to set the meeting up?
Yes.
Fine.
I'm sure that could be right.
And Fred was very helpful with this.
I think this is what's been lacking in the past is the what you've mentioned, the lack of trust on the part of the community in the school committee to even bother to go see them, to go talk with them. They've been rebuffed in the past, and they said the hell with it. So I think it's a good sign that you're willing to even initiate the meetings. I think it's a sign of progress, isn't it?
You think you could be prepared to do something like that within the next week?
So I'm still guessing.
Did you get community ready for a long-term thing in the week?
I do.
People have to make arrangements.
You can know more about that.
We're not talking about another 24-hour session.
No, but even if you're talking in terms of a block of 6 hours or something, for an in-depth discussion, people with families have to make arrangements. You don't pick up and leave 3 preschool kids sitting there with a bowl of cornflakes while you dash merrily off. And
well, I think it's important to have it, if it's going to affect this King school situation, have it as soon as practical.
I would agree with that. I think
Go along with that.
And I think it could affect it because we do have, I can't get over it, so many myths about one another, and even if some of the myths are true, being closer.
A very significant episode is occurring now in which this group has started working on how can we make use of this kind of experience out where it will count with the people who are calling the shots. And you notice that they're starting to explore the possibility of having a meeting of the King Timothy Advisory Board along with the school committee, along with representatives of the teachers union, to work at getting at the human equation in these issues.
Think for a minute and say, okay, what would I take from Larry? Something that he's got that I kind of could use for me. And or what would I give him of something I have as a person that I think would be useful to him to have?
You just clarified the question.
And I like his ability to change. He told us earlier he had come to a conclusion about me, which he later changed when he heard more information. And I think that's a great thing to have, a great ability to have to change. And to admit it.
Another thing which makes this a lot more meaningful is for you to look at Larry and say that to him rather than me, because you want it from him, not from me.
Oh, you asked a question, that's right.
I'm suggesting it as an exercise the whole group can do.
I like about Larry the fact that he came to a conclusion. You got a dime, you got a pillow. And he changed his conclusion, his opinion, after being informed of more facts.
Maybe the sort of thing that you alluded to when you said I changed my mind. actually this has been an ongoing process for some time. In a sense that it gives me more confidence in otherwise, in a system that I otherwise sense is pretty hostile to the sort of things I'm looking for.
Good. Next. Nobody seems to want to give or to get anything.
Oh, I'll get to Elizabeth. I admire her honesty, her forthrightness, and her down-to-earthness. And I would hope to give her some compassion and understanding of the problem.
Well, I can give you something too. I have a very, very definite opinion of you. I guess it's standard that you will be beyond comprehending black people. Completely, wholly, and utterly, without even little old me attempting to even bother. And I didn't realize you were going to be here. And when I realized you were, I said, oh, well, that ends that. And I'm glad to find that I was wrong. That you could sit in the room with us black people and be content. And I think this type of thing is important. I think this is the general rule. Call me on it if I'm wrong about most white people.
You're speaking to Louise then?
Yes. That we just, our dear little children who are just as dear to us as yours are to you, they have the capacity. We know they have the capacity. And when we're told that these poor little misfortunate children don't have the capacity.
Who are we?
Black people.
You and Louise were relating to each other.
Yes.
As individuals. Could you relate to her as Louise?
To her, well, she wasn't an individual to me until
is she
today.
Now? Is she now?
Until today. But this is what I'm saying. This was my conception. And of course, you had to put her in on a whole because you didn't know her as an individual, and you could only know her from what you hear her say with your own ears. Because I don't trust print. With my ears, I've heard come out directly out of her mouth. It lead me to believe that we could not understand each other.
And see, I have also said too before, and so many times, that it honestly doesn't matter what color a mother's skin is, because all mothers are interested in the same thing, the welfare of the children. And I think this is true, and I think maybe it's on this level that maybe we can meet. Because it is true that I don't care whether your child is white, green, black, or yellow. My only concern when I was on the school committee was to bring the education that I was told that by the educators.
Louise, you're
that
going
was
back to the
needed
school committee.
children.
You're going back to the school committee. That, to me, you're campaigning again.
No, I don't need to campaign, but I'm only trying to talk about the school.
Let me play something through with you and I thought I heard her relating. I thought I heard you relate to her first as Elizabeth.
Yes.
To Louise.
Right.
And then I heard her relate to you as Elizabeth to Louise, and then she went back we.
I see.
And I just heard you go back, school committee.
It's very difficult not to think of yourself as we.
Because that's one of the things that we might get out of this.
I think it's, you can't, because we as a people have been fighting since we've been in America. You can't very easily suddenly become Louise and I understand that we have become individuals to each other. Whether or not you feel it deep as we do is irrelevant.
Are you saying now to Louise that you see her as an individual now?
Yes. I like, she might have her stereotype black. I have my stereotype white. You understand? And we've gotten over this barrier. But that's just her and I. But that still doesn't alter the fact that we are we. our people together as a whole. I don't fight for me. I fight for we, for all. If I can get something for my child, it's not just for my child. It's for all black children. If she would see all children.
You want to
But
take that to Louise?
I think, and call me on it if I'm wrong, because this is only my opinion, that Louise saw black children all the same mentality, all the same learning power, learning capacity, where whites were individuals. Now this is just my own...
And I have to call you on it because I know, it isn't anything that I think, I know for a fact that all black children are not the same.
What I'm saying, this is the impression, not just me, maybe not all of us, got the impression from the way you speak. Now, it would be nice if we were wrong.
Elizabeth, can you speak for yourself? How do you feel about Louise? Do you still have that impression of Louise?
I still say she has a long way to go. But I think that, I don't know whether it was today or whether it's been a general awakening, but I think she has changed her opinion of black people.
I have learned many things from being here today. There's no question whatsoever. I was concerned coming into the group. I may be more concerned leaving it. I mean, for the welfare, but I can see if there are going to be more meetings of the community with the school committee, that this will be good. And this will help for my understanding, for the community's understanding, and this will help for the welfare of the whole city. And this is important. But maybe it's, when you come into a group, maybe you do select somebody after a whole day and night of being together that maybe you feel a little kinship to. There's something that draws you to somebody. There's something that you find in somebody that you appreciate maybe. And I found it in Elizabeth here. I mean, if I were to choose in the group of somebody that I found, I found that's something in her. I admire her because, first of all, she is open. She is honest in her, what she has said about herself, her background, and I think she tried to bring a great deal to this group. I think that everybody, I'm sure, feels the same way, that she did bring a great deal to us.
So I'll tell you this, I'm glad to get to know you. Now I can talk with some degree of knowledge about Louise Day Hicks. Even if I don't agree with your opinions on certain issues, I can now see you as an individual and not as someone to fight. But someone I can say, pick up the phone and say, Mrs. Hicks, this is Mrs. Bristol. Can I have your ear for a minute?
We were almost
and know I would get it.
I had something to offer. Maybe it's not somebody in this room, but maybe it's everybody in this room. But whoever brought us all together, you know, I kind of think that at least there's an awareness of each other's positions. Whether we agree, I think somehow we might be able to work that out. But at least we're here, and we're not the bad guys and the good guys, or the anarchists and the whatever else other terms we want to use. I think that a meeting like this, I think it indicates one thing that we can all join in, and that's to get something happening, especially at the King's School. And if we can do it at the King's School, then maybe we can do it in a lot of other places, and maybe we aren't in as bad a shape as maybe we think. I think in order to solve a problem, you have to first recognize that a problem exists. And so I'm just grateful that we're all here together.
Yes, I think don't know who initiated it, but whoever should get some sort of award for community service. I mean, I think that our very presence here signifies that someone is concerned, and even the participants. Time they give it up, I'm away from my wife and my 5 children.
They're enjoying looking back at the experience they've been through and extracting some of the worries and anxieties and feelings of misgiving that they felt. This is, in the literature on group dynamics, known as the Golden Glow period, where they're enjoying the fact that they've built a relationship that they're all happy with.
I was particularly impressed with the exchanges between individuals. You know, it really, you know, it wasn't, I don't want to use the word corny. It might have appeared that way for some, but it was so real that you felt it was real, you know, and it was in simple terms, but somehow the relationship seemed to develop.
Truth will set you free. You know, I want to say, I don't think anyone here is in a position to commit, you know, the black community. I know that I'm not. But I will say this in terms, I think it has been useful. I think that, so far as I'm concerned, and the people to whom I'm going to speak, I will say very much the same thing that John has said, that what do you have to lose? And I think not only just what do you have to lose kind of thing, but I think something useful will come of that. That's my feeling. The way I can't tell you exactly what I'm going to say to them, but it will boil down to essentially, I think you should get together, and I think possibly something will come up. And they can buy it or reject it. Either way, you'll get that information. I know I'm going to make the same attempt as John to contact some people. I think it's been useful. I think we've demonstrated that you can get people who have positions seem diametrically opposed to each other, and they can sit down and discuss things. You know, once, like I say, once the air is clear, and begin to find out that you're talking to another human being, and they're not all these things. They're not something. They're human. They're human beings that drink and more, eating sandwiches.
It wasn't until this afternoon that I began to feel that maybe it hadn't all been a waste. Because I really had, you know, strongly negative feelings about the value of it once I got here and we got started. And I think I expressed that.
I think that comes from going to too many meetings.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. You know, talking to too many people too many times about too many things.
He's hanging on for dear life.
Stayed with that jacket.
I'm about ready to leave. Is there anything else anybody feels they can contribute?
And whoever's going to be the chairman, will you make the motion? John, are you or Paul?
It's a lot like a first date. You don't know how to get away from the front door, you know.
Is anybody by any chance going out towards you?
I am.
We're all poor people from Dorchester.
I have to go across the river.
I may be a little bit. We may hang around and chat a little bit. I can check that.
You can grab a nap. You can go off like that.
I know.
Call and find out where Roxbury, Dorchester, and
My God. Is that the end of it?
No, this is...
Well, man, nice to meet you, and same here.
Nice to be with you.
Same here.
Thank you. Nice to be with you, Chairman.
One more to go before Christmas.
Nice to be with you.
Jack, my pleasure, really.
This is a fascinating scene as they're breaking up, ready to go home. In case you weren't able to hear, a very interesting conversation just took place. Mrs. Louise Day Hicks said to one of the black parents, Mrs. Elizabeth Bristol, "Will you call me?" And Mrs. Bristol responded, "I sure will." The group is standing now, or at least they're trying to get up on their cramped legs. The black and white participants are offering one another rides to their homes. And the room they've been meeting in, which is 17 by 17 feet, Looks as if a group of college students had held a week-long fraternity hazing here. There are food and papers and wrappers all over the floor. You can really tell a human event has taken place in this room.
I have a car and I'm taking somebody to Dorchester. Anybody want to ride?
By way of Cambridge?
Oh, hi.
Well, you're all together. I'd just like to say thank you very much. That was the most...
Welcome.
I can't even find a word.
Put the checks in the mail Monday.
At one point, there was one very significant thing that came out of it, and that was the offer to have a meeting with the King Timothy Commission. We'd like you, if you would like to have it here at WBZ.
Sure.
Without Canada.
With or without, that's your choice.
The offer was made by WBZ Public Affairs Director Jerry Wishnow.
Dorothy, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
The complete version of this tape was aired in a continuous 11-hour broadcast. It was followed by a 4-hour live program in which the listeners were invited to call in their reactions to the original participants.